Good day, everyone. On behalf of the FIDIC board, I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, AI powering a new area of construction, the potential of artificial intelligence to transform the industry. The webinar has been organized by FIDIC's Digital Transformation Committee, which plays an important role in advocating and guiding FIDIC and the consulting engineering community on the use of the new and existing technologies. AI is certainly one of those technologies, and I'm delighted that today's webinar is dealing with this important issue. FIDIC's Digital Transformation Committee is chaired by Stacy Sinclair, partner and head of technology and innovation at law firm Fenwick Elliott, and she will be moderating today's webinar. Our event today will be looking at the fast-moving and often changing area of AI in the engineering, construction, and infrastructure sector. We will be focusing on real-world applications and technologies which are revolutionizing the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of major global infrastructure projects. It is truly an exciting and innovative area, as we will hear over the next 90 minutes. Our lineup of speakers are experts in the field and include global engineering consultants working in AI, strategic advisors in the digital arena, and experts in digital innovation and implementation. We know that AI in construction has a potential to help all players realize value throughout the project lifecycle, including design, bidding and financing, procurement and construction, operations and asset management, and business model transformation. AI has a potential to help the industry as a whole to overcome some of our toughest challenges, including safety concerns, labor shortages, and cost and schedule overruns. So today we'll be examining some of those issues and hopefully also shedding some light on what companies need to do if they are considering using AI for the first time or applying it in different areas of their business. As said, we have a great lineup of knowledgeable speakers on our panel today, and I know they will be bringing some very interesting insights to this crucial topic. Stacy will introduce those speakers to you in a moment. As always with our FIDIC events, please also feel free to ask as many questions as you wish using the chat box here below. It now gives me a great pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's event, the chair of FIDIC Digital Transformation Committee, Stacy Sinclair, who will introduce the speakers and take you through today's event. Stacy, it's over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Martina, and a very warm welcome to everyone today. As they say in FIDIC, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. I know everyone is joining from around the world, so thank you very, very much for taking the time. So I understand we have nearly 1,000 people registered for today's webinar, and I think that's certainly a testament to the significance and importance of this topic. It's certainly a subject which is shaping the future of our industry. So thank you very much again. As Martina said, over the next 19 minutes, we are going to be focusing on the real world applications of AI. Today is not really about what is AI, although I'm sure we're going to hear plenty about data and large language models and so forth. But rather, today is about the here and the now, what technology is available for use now, how are construction and engineering firms embracing and using AI to enhance productivity, the services they provide, and the delivery of projects. As we all know, about 16 months ago in November 2022, we of course saw the explosion of AI into the market, and specifically generative AI, with the release of ChatGPT. And the buzz around AI has really only exponentially increased since then. Of course, AI is not new. And at that point, it had been around for at least some 75 years, since the mid 1900s. But what was new and what was novel in November 2022 was the awareness of AI and the accessibility of AI. And admittedly, you might remember that it was actually slightly difficult to get into ChatGPT in December, January, February of 2023, as it had 1 million new users sign up within just 5 days. But nevertheless, it was available to all for free, or a paid subscription if you wanted to ensure you were able to get in. But it was that awareness and that accessibility that was new. But since then, in 2023, AI has consistently been the subject of debate, discussing its potential, frequently making the news headlines, and motivating governments to take action quickly to ensure safety. For example, last April in 2023, Italy temporarily banned ChatGPT. Then we saw in May 2023, Geoffrey Hinton left Google, warning the world about the future dangers of AI. In June 2023, Mackenzie predicted that generative AI has the potential to add up to $4.4 trillion in value to the global economy. We then saw the world's first AI safety summit in November, which took place in the UK, bringing together 29 governments and other key international institutions and major AI companies. And now what we're seeing in 2024, on the 2nd of February, we had the final version of the EU AI Act, which was unanimously endorsed by 27 EU member states. And we're seeing other frameworks here in the UK, for example, and others globally. So what we're now seeing is we've moved into we're seeing more and more platforms coming to the market for everything from design and construction, contract and program analysis, risk mitigation to surface insights, technology that's being used in operation and maintenance, for example, and of course, helping to reduce the impact of climate change. And indeed, more and more organizations are endorsing the use of AI. Here in the UK, just even last week, we had the Infrastructure and Projects Authority publish a new framework which sets out how AI will be harnessed to boost productivity and product delivery, enabling civil servants working on over 805 billion pounds of public projects to utilize AI to improve effectiveness and efficiencies on their delivery. So if 2023 was about possibility and perhaps panic, I'm suggesting that 2024 is about progress and the practicalities of AI, focusing on the tangible, constructive advancements of AI technologies and solutions. But I suppose, let's see if that's really the case. It would be brilliant to bring up our first poll for today's session and see how the audience, see how you are experiencing AI. So I think shortly, there we go, you should see on your screens the first question: what is your experience with AI? Is your organization using it in some way? Are you planning on using it or considering its use, but perhaps not quite? Or no, you're not using AI in your organization, and you really have no plans to do so for all of those reasons that we've heard today, we will hear about today, and we've heard in the news clearly about safety and security and the maturity in terms of bias and hallucinations and so forth. We know that everyone's not in the same place in terms of the digital transformation and maturity, but let's see what we have here. So not quite one third, but we are looking at, that's very, very interesting. I suppose if we were all talking about ChatGPT and AI, even just like 6-7 months ago, you'd be asking, you know, have you tried it yet? But now it's, I suppose, the reverse question of who hasn't tried it. And I think that poll is showing us just how much the industry is engaging and embracing with AI, or plans to do so in the near future. So that's really, really helpful to see. So let's move on to what our expert panel has in store for us today. How is AI and generative AI being used safely and securely across the architecture, engineering, and construction industry? And let's turn to our panel. You can see, I believe there on the screen, yes, we have Steve Lewis of Ernst Young, Tony Scott of NeuralRays, Kunihiro Uzawa from Nippon Koei, Simon Oster from Arcadis, and Dave Mackenzie from Aurecon. So welcome, panelists. Thank you so much for taking your time today. We're really excited to hear about the exciting use cases you have for us. And I think with that, shall we turn to Steve? Welcome. Let me just, there we go. Hi, Steve. Steve.
Hi.
Hi, excellent, you can hear. Steve is a partner at Ernst Young, EY's infrastructure advisory practice in Hong Kong. He has experience of working with organizations at a strategic program and project level, both in the private and the public sectors. the UK, China, Middle East, Asia Pacific. Steve also is recently working on a report, which I believe is soon to be released, regarding the state of AI in the industry, and no doubt we'll hear about that very shortly. So, Steve, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Stacy, and good evening from Guangzhou in southern China. So it's a pleasure to be here today and to talk about this important topic. As Stacy has said, I'm in the middle of drafting, or EY, I should say, is in the middle of drafting a report for FIDIC on AI and the adoption of AI in our industry, across the stakeholders in our industry, and what it means for us, really. So really, I'm going to, just in the few minutes that I have today, just give you a little bit of a taster, really, for what that report will be and what it focuses on when it comes out in September of this year. So, I mean, as has already been alluded to, there are, of course, significant challenges that we're facing, and I won't really dwell on what those are, because we all have heard about those. We know what they are. We live within them on a daily basis. But really, as we know, the acceleration of our adoption of disruptive technology and things such as AI is critical if we're going to address those properly. And all stakeholders really in across the infrastructure lifecycle must be on board with their role in terms of mitigating those challenges, even though we all have different business models, of course, that we operate within, and different focuses of our business that we have to bear in mind. But really, there are two key questions that I think we have to ask ourselves that really are the fundamental part of what this report is are we progressing fast enough? And do we holistically, as an industry and as individual stakeholders within that industry, truly understand what AI is and how it can be adopted, to address those large macro societal issues, but also those project-related issues, program-related issues that we deliver within, So I think generally the answer, as I say, is no to those questions, and that's okay, as long as we are collectively as an industry trying to understand how we get to that answer being yes, and what we can do with AI. So really, the report that we're writing, although Stacy, I know the focus here isn't to define what AI is, but the report we're writing does start with some definition around AI, because we think that's one of the things that is currently one of the concerns, the issues, is that true understanding of what AI is and what it actually means for us. So breaking AI down from an umbrella term to its more discrete component parts. What is it? And what are those individual parts, from natural language processing to robotics to machine learning, and really putting some definition around what they are. And then really saying, well, that's all very well, that we break it down, but in reality, that's not how it's applied. So once we've broken it down, putting it back together again, but in a way that can be understood within the industry, a way that we can understand it from an outputs and an impact and a uses perspective. And the reality of AI, as I say, whilst there are discrete branches to it, the reality is that they're never really working one by one. There are always those branches coming together and working in unison to provide the outputs that we're seeing, both the simple ones and the much more complex solutions that we're starting to see being adopted. And really what we try to do is put that into a structured articulation of 5 key groupings, as I say, of these uses, where we've got optioneering and optimization using data science techniques, predictive modeling, earth observation, knowledge representation, and knowledge discovery. So moving from the discrete branches that I've mentioned into a collective groupings of those branches in relation to how they can be applied, how they can be used. And the idea, once we've set that scene of what it is and how it can be used, is really digging into the maturity of its use around the world in those simple terms, but also in the more detailed use cases. But then taking that forward a little bit and saying, well, how could those functionalities be expanded? How could we make more use of them? And how could it potentially encourage or be one of the facilitators, enablers for a new approach to how we deliver infrastructure in a much more systems way of thinking? So could it be that missing piece of the puzzle in terms of shifting the way in which we deliver infrastructure to benefit from all of our broad capabilities in the different parts of the supply chain that we are coming together to give a different, more sustainable and consistent output That's the overarching sort of ambition around how we do that. And then we would take that forward into obviously understanding what the issues, the blockers, the challenges, the concerns are, the fears are, which are definitely there with AI. But taking it forward to the final part, which is really where it gets quite interesting for me, is what we're calling the ambitions and the handshakes. And what I mean by that is what is it that many parts of the industry, the stakeholders within the industry would like AI to be? What could it be for them? So from a contractor to a developer to from an owner to a designer, what could AI be for them? What's their ambition case? Having now defined what it is and how it's used and what its outputs could be, what could AI be as an ambition? So not only defining that, but taking it forward to saying, well, beyond an ambition, I need someone to help me. I need a handshake from various parts of the wider stakeholder network and group, whether that be government helping me with skills or helping me with the way in which projects are procured to ensure that I have enough funding to invest in the right in technologies or whatever that might be. But the handshake, the commitment, the quid pro quo to enable my ambition. And the idea being that we put some straw men together on those ambitions handshakes, that then gets taken forward to the summit in Geneva in late April, where we'll expand upon those. That ultimately leads to the generation of recommendations from FIDIC to the industry for how to adopt AI in a sustainable and usable manner to hopefully drive a different way of delivering in the future for infrastructure. And I think that probably takes me just about to the end of my 6 minutes. So I will hand back to you, Stacy.
Thank you very much, Stephen. It's really hugely helpful and for setting the scene. And indeed, thank you. I'm very much looking forward to that report once it's published. Just before moving on, Steve, can I just want to pick up on one point. Can you give us a little bit of a flavor or taster of how AI potentially could be, say, the catalyst for a broader change in how infrastructure projects are delivered? Are you able to say one point on that? Maybe give us a bit of an insight into the report.
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah, just a small question. Yeah, look, I think I guess it comes to my point about could it be one of the catalysts for a systems way of thinking. I think the bottom line, of course, is that infrastructure is so influenced by and does also influence society and societal macro challenges that realistically we have to think not only in programs and projects but much more in a systems way of thinking. I know we talk about systems and systems of systems, but really is AI one of the enablers to saying that collectively the different individual component parts of a supply chain could come together in a more platform-based solution model, if you like, for delivering projects that benefits from the vast amount of data, but in making it accessible in a more easily accessible manner, such that we can be more informed and more collectively making decisions within projects in their stages, but also understanding the impact and the onto society and the society's impact on those decisions. My view is potentially, yes, it is one of the pieces of the puzzle that could be the catalyst to enabling that new way of thinking, if you like. So that's where my mind is, without being overly specific. It will come out in the report, but I think hopefully you can see my thought process there, that it is an enabler, hopefully, to a different future.
Absolutely, definitely an enabler, and your point to the sort of almost platform economy that we really do see ourselves within now. Fantastic, thank you, Steve. Let's move on to Tony Scott. Tony, welcome. Thank you very much for joining. Tony is the founder, CEO, and CIO of NeuralRays AI, which is a technology consultancy in AI, data science, and product development. Tony has worked in the engineering and construction industry for quite some time now and is also part of FIDIC's Digital Transformation Committee. So thank you very much, Tony. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stacy and Steve. Thank you for that great scene setting too. So yes, I'm Tony Scott. I'm 30 plus years in technology roles. Most of those have been client facing. And as Stacy said, in the AEC industry, I've worked to CIO level for Arup, Atkins, WSP, and Bureau Happold. But in 2018, I returned to my professional services roots, jointly founding NeuralRays AI. And our name, NeuralRays, it reflects our vision to shine a light on cognitive services. And our mantra is to build solutions for a better world. Today's webinar is about AI, and as our name suggests, we've been doing AI since our inception. Our first client was a manufacturer of construction vehicles for whom we used machine vision to create a real-time defect detection system on its truck assembly line. Natural language processing, Steve mentioned, or NLP, is another tool in our AI toolbox. And for example, we used NLP combined with image processing to analyze 40 years worth of drilling reports to help optimize operations for an oil and gas company. Another use of AI was in a retail digital twin project where we combined demographic data with real-time in-store customer movement and behavior to enable optimized product selection and placement in supermarkets. But as valid as each of these examples of our work is, they are all, I think, very much point solutions, or as Steve talked about, discrete branches. What has changed, as we all know, and Stacy mentioned in her introduction, in the last 18 months is the appearance in the public domain of generative AI, or Gen AI for short, and the widespread availability of large language models, or LLMs. The rest of my talk will be around Gen AI and its use at a corporate level within engineering, infrastructure, and construction companies. And very much what Stacy said after the poll, a year ago, I also would often ask an audience, who here has used ChatGPT? And nowadays I ask who hasn't used it, and very few, if any, hands now go up. Indeed, even my 8-year-old daughter is using Gen AI to create her own e-commerce site. And if you're interested, as an aside, have a look at bunnyfish.co.uk. But what I tell her is the same as I would tell an engineer. Gen AI is a wonderful tool, but if you're going to pass its work off as your own, you must know how best to use it and be willing to take full ownership of everything it produces. That is, the knowledge might come from the AI, but wisdom remains a human attribute. So having worked as a CIO, I'm very conscious of the concept of shadow IT. And for those not familiar with the term, this is when technology suppliers sell their solutions directly into business teams, often deliberately bypassing IT. Well, the sudden availability and adoption of Gen AI across business departments in the last year must have felt like shadow IT on steroids for many CIOs. And there are genuine reasons why CIOs have had sleepless nights, worrying about the leaking of sensitive and confidential corporate information through their employees' casual use of tools such as ChatGPT. It was to address concerns such as this that we at NeuralRays AI put together Gen AI consulting service as an assessment package to help companies get started with meaningful and safe Gen AI adoption. Our clients commonly asked how they can get the benefits of conversational AI within their corporate environments and using their own private data. This inspired us to develop what we call Fount AI, or the fount of knowledge for corporate information. Fount AI is a customizable, ready-to-use Gen AI solution for enterprises. It is built around open source LLMs, and it provides search responses from domain-specific data sources. Indeed, I recently demonstrated Fount AI at a water industry event where it was trained only on data relating to an engineering company's water-related projects, as well as sustainability data from COP28. Fount AI data is stored in the corporate cloud, the private cloud, or on-premise infrastructure, and through this it provides data security and data privacy. Its data sources can be documents, web pages, and structured databases. And Fount AI always shows its sources to help users validate its outputs. Note that ChatGPT does not show its sources. Fount AI adopts the now familiar chat user interface, but we recently created an avatar option for an engineering company, which we will now also be making available via a WhatsApp interface, which could be useful, for example, on construction sites. If anyone would like to learn more or to try Fount AI with their own data, please do get in touch. And now for some key takeaways. Gen AI and LLMs are democratizing structured, operational, and unstructured data, making corporate information more accessible in a familiar and easily consumed manner. However, the mantra of garbage in, garbage out has never been more applicable. Gen AI's outputs are only as good as the data it consumes. This is why data quality and stewardship are crucially important for organizations wanting to gain competitive advantage from Gen AI. Gen AI systems should also respect ethical and responsible AI principles. The answers it gives should be ones that are acceptable in your workplace. And role-based permissions should also be enforced. Can you ask your corporate Gen AI system for your CEO's salary, for example? Well, I hope not, unless you work in HR. In terms of creating a business case for Gen AI, don't overanalyze the use cases for it. There is no previous experience of Gen AI, and organizations are still working out how best to benefit from it. You should therefore give your users and teams the creative freedom to experiment to find what works best for them. And building on this, you should be prepared for a huge cultural change impact in Gen AI adoption too. Remember, we are actively encouraging people, some with many years experience, to work in a completely new manner. This can take time to gain traction. So finally, our founding vision at NeuralRays AI was and remains to build solutions for a better world. I'm therefore uncomfortable when I hear business people boasting about using AI and automation to reduce headcount. For me, Gen AI is 100% about improving the productivity of the people we already employ by giving them an assistant who will massively enhance the quality and volume of their output. Most importantly, through this, we can then provide a far superior service to our clients. Rather than focusing just on bottom line efficiencies, I encourage companies to use AI to grow their top lines too. That is, to innovate and find newer business models and sources of revenue growth. This is the excitement I see around generative AI, and it's what we at NeuralRays AI will be encouraging through our ongoing development of Fount AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Such an important reminder to remember that wisdom remains a human characteristic. And I mean, I think we can all take that away. But the other thing, which I think our audience might find really helpful, is that Tony, I believe you have a YouTube presentation on Fount AI, which is extremely helpful. And if you're interested in seeing it firsthand and some of the avatars that Tony was talking about, perhaps we can find a link to that YouTube, which is really helpful. But Tony, just this often comes up actually, and particularly in the legal world, which I am in. You mentioned that Fount AI being that sort of fountain of knowledge for corporate information. How are you ensuring that people only see what they're entitled to see? How you don't see the CEO's salary and so on and so forth? How does that happen? How do you make that happen?
That's a really good question. This is what I mentioned about role-based permissions, and we take that quite seriously. And so we're looking at domain-specific use cases where the LLM and the knowledge within it can be made relevant to a particular area of the business. And that is one way, but in doing that, we also respect the permissions that are associated with that data. We also, and we have this concept of the intelligent hopper, where information can be poured in, or files and documents can be poured in, but we do that in a way, as I said, that respects those permissions. We also have a concept of crawling information, where we can go out across file servers, across SharePoint and so on. And but here there are particular issues. We could look at documents that have been shared over decades and might not have been shared with appropriate permissions. And it's quite common even now for people to share documents with teammates and so on, but to set default permissions that give everybody access to those. And if you start crawling those and your AI starts accessing them, then indeed the AI is actually going to be able to give that information available to everyone. So I talked about data stewardship, and it becomes increasingly important. So it would make sense, depending on the organization, to run some parallel exercises that really look at the information that's going to go into the AI, and that might actually be exposed later, to make sure that permissions are appropriate. You go specifically looking for sensitive and confidential information as well, and do that double check on that information, that the permissions are on it appropriately before you start crawling that information and making it available to your AI. And I think once you've done all of that, the power of what comes out of it is going to be incredibly, it's going to be so powerful for individuals, for teams, and for organizations. So there's a bit of legwork, a bit of foundational work to be done first, but it can be done, and it should indeed be done.
Yeah. 100% agree. This is not something you just want to jump in and roll out without testing and making sure you've set everything up properly, permission-wise, so that you're not finding yourself in a situation. Super. Thank you so much, Tony. Now we are going to move on to Kunihiro Uzawa from Singapore and Nippon Koei. Kunihiro is the General Manager of Nippon Koei's Business Partners Co. Limited, the Singapore branch, as I said. Kunihiro has been with Nippon Koei since 2006 and most recently has been involved in their new business and technology development in Southeast Asia. Kunihiro, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stacy. Well, I hope everyone can hear my voice. So great pleasure being a speaker for this event. Again, I'm Kunihiro Uzawa, leading Nippon Koei Group Innovative Initiative from Singapore as a Center of Excellence. Today, I would like to highlight three things from our experience and practices in Asia, which are diversity, localization, and 80-20 as numbers. So first is diversity. How can we collaborate with the new entrants from other industry like a startup who have developed the disruptive solution into the markets? So they are very flexible, fast, and aggressive rather than the traditional enterprise like us. And we are proactively working with them to enhance our offering in the conventional field, as well as to open a new market for us. So there are a few use cases I would like to share with you in this regard. So our technology partner, Bebits, is a high-tech company based in Singapore. Their current key product and services include a safety system, cloud AI platforms for transportation and facility management, and vision-based automations. Their transformative system has successfully been implemented in multiple applications, and the remarkable one is the recent nationwide road inspection work in Singapore. The Land Transportation Authority, LTA of Singapore, called for tender last year for the nationwide road inspection for 5 years. Utilization of image AI processing and analytics to identify more than 10 items specified by LTA, such as road crack, pothole, water hole, drainage, signage, and other road asset is an obligatory for bidders, which was not considered previously. So existing players for this type of work were very confused and looking for solutions provider who fulfill the new requirement from LTA. Then the tender was two separate packages, East Road and West. But actually, the Bebit is involved in both packages to provide AI image processing work for main inspection contractor. And they have done this work with less than 10 engineers and data scientists. So we also collaborate with Tokyo University spinning out startups UrbanX, who has successfully implemented their AI image processing solutions in several municipalities in Japan. So another technology partner is Traverse, having a software-based engineering automation platform that can mimic tasks done by specific engineers or experts. One of their product, WindDesk, which is for wind power project feasibility study, containing not only energy generation assessment, but also access road routing, horizontal and vertical optimization, and financial modeling as well. They deliver successfully a report they generated from the platform to the major global companies such as BlackRock and Shell. Currently, we Nippon Koei have been working together with them to together with Traverse startups to automate our engineering processes in infrastructure matters from hydropower engineering to traffic analytics to railways and to agriculture, so on and so forth. So this example is still a pre-adaptation phase of AI, but our engineers are multidisciplinary in nature, and different experts use diverse software model and the models and the method that result in the chain of input and output. When any input or output change at any stage, all downstream work must be revised, leading to direct and indirect cost or lost opportunities to provide value to our end customers. So these are just a part of our initiative in the world. And of course, there are several organic research and development deployment activities within the Nippon Koei group. But at the same time, we always welcome those disruptive startups for strategic collaborations. And open innovation with diverse solution providers is what Nippon Koei Singapore is taking a lead in the organization. The second is a localization. We are always thinking how to scale up the technologies, but as the nature of our business, specifically, we are designing and building tangible infrastructure in the different countries. Their needs and criteria are different per location, even in the same country. As I mentioned earlier, we have been engaged in the roads inspection and the maintenance field, where we have to take into account the different type of crack. For example, between Brazil and Japan, a solution successfully identified in Japan as a piece of crack cannot capture every damages in the road of Brazil because its size and shape are very unique comparing to what we annotated for our work in Japan. Although a solution is ready and their algorithm is quite sophisticated, always we have to have a local data to train AI for localization. Otherwise, AI cannot give you a right answer. For another example, there was a problem statement from Singapore Land Authority last year. How might we leverage generative AI technology such as GPT, large language models, to develop innovative solutions on their local map named One Map, which will offer existing and new user greater convenience, as well as personalized and useful map-based information. So natural language was initially a prototype for internal use to reduce staff workload in writing factual and accurate engineering report and GIS data mining using a ChatGPT-like user interface. It is a key component to ground LLM models with fact and stats to get accurate responses and domain-specific knowledge. To achieve this goal, we have to develop or use a solution that specializes in the support of geospatial data, such as longitude, latitude, POIs, relationships, geospatial analysis result, facts and stats. It also combines high-velocity facts and stat and static facts and stat into natural language text for using LLM fine-tuning, alignment, and context prompt compositions. Last highlight is 80-20. 80-20 proportions means our ideal work allocation between AI and engineers for specific work. AI cannot replace 100% engineers' work for sure, but can be co-pilot for engineers' decision-making process for your operational use and for specific project. It still requires extensive annotation work by engineers per requirement, as I mentioned earlier. Even before that, digitization and the digitalization are, of course, first place to do. And writing down your workflow in detail and precisely for process automation in order that AI gives answers from your abundant training data. Nippon Koei use case, for instance, over 75 years of operation globally, we have abundant data, use cases, and the methodologies which can be converted to algorithm for AI. For our operations optimization, we aim to reduce information screening and analyzing work for proposal preparation, approximately 70 to 220 hours per person per year by applying AI. Engineers can focus more on insight and adding value to their actual work. To enhance AI power as an engineer co-pilot, we have been preparing, Nippon Koei Group have been preparing several skill app and reskilling training programs in the organizations. Market-wise, Southeast Asia, where digitization and digitalization are still required in many fields comparing to Europe and North America. Digital technology and AI can bring us leapfrogging. Even Japan is regarded as AI emerging country, drastic improvement can be expected. So we Nippon Koei Group, we don't hesitate to apply this technology. So hope I finished in 6 minutes, but this is the end of my sharing. Thank you again, and happy to discuss further. Back to Stacy.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, Kunihiro. That's really helpful, and those are really, really helpful examples of just how AI is enhancing and enabling engineers, not just simply taking over jobs. And you can't just give it to the computer and expect to get the answer back. And it is all about that trust and those outputs. So thank you very much, Kunihiro. We are now going to move on to Simon Oster from Arcadis. Hi, Simon. Hi, I can't see you. Hopefully you're there. Hi, Simon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Excellent. Simon is the Global Data Scientist Manager at Arcadis. He is the technical lead for Arcadis's AI and generative AI solutions. He leads a team that is at the forefront of innovative solutions in the AEC industry to create solutions for many global challenges, such as climate change or urbanization. So, Simon, over to you. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy, for inviting and also the introduction. So when it comes to the potential of AI in the construction and infrastructure sector, I want to step back first a little bit. So in general, I would like to say we're sitting in the same boat. And in this boat, we are navigating us through the water of a really fragmented industry. So let's just call it here like that. And the great advancement of AI is that with the rise of LLMs and in specific GPTs is its multimodularity. So which obviously supports us on our journey when not knowing towards which island we would like to steer or navigate our boat first, how to implement AI now. So what does multimodularity mean at the end of the day? And just let me give you an example. So predicting words, not only in one, but even like in hundreds of languages, generating images and design, and even producing high quality videos, which is prompting, so instructing the model in your own words in your natural language. And to follow my analogy, we can now travel like to 1+N islands at the same time. But what does this actually mean in practice? So for example, enhancing existing tools, building new products and platforms within our own organizations. And I would just like to focus on some examples and on the potential that we have seen. First, I would like to talk about development. So for example, we have implemented an in-house ChatGPT. So probably that's the most obvious one where to start. And the advantage to do so is that you have full control over the cost, over the data, and over the feedback that you're receiving from its usage. So it's just as an example, let's further focus on the costs. Instead of paying something around like $10 per month per user per license, we're just paying $1,000 a month for the cloud consumption that we have. In our organization, if we're doing the simple math, that sums up, or in comparison to 360K monthly operating, because we have 36,000 employees, and equipping everyone with these kinds of licenses is just like balancing cost versus value. So furthermore, going along like these insights, we are collecting on this platform and our tools to really understand how generative AI is used at Arcadis. So in addition to the cost, we really try to understand the usage and the value, or more specifically, efficiency gains in general. And users using our tool internal, and they're reporting time savings of around like 1 hour per week. And let's just do once again the math. And we had like 6K unique users last month. And if we just do it like with $70 hourly rate times 6,000 employees times 4 weeks, you sum up to 1.6 million of monthly value generated. So considering on top, like you have the full control of the data and the usage, and of course the costs. So from there, I just concluding like, yes, generative AI has proven opportunities and value in the field of recent like AI development. And just taking into consideration that it took us only 1 month to develop this tool, but it's very powerful. And these LLMs and GPTs are, of course, holding more capable opportunities for our organization and also ultimately also to enable our employees in general. So beyond now building new software product, let's also take an example of product enhancement. So the internal ChatGPT is, of course, just consuming the most recent models, whereas new tools are very use case specific developed. So we're enhancing with GPTs, with RAG technologies, so retrieval augmented generation and assistant APIs, and making querying on our own data possible. So we can even tackle like more specific task completions. For example, we are enhancing an internal contract review tool with GPTs. So let's step back. In the past, we were training per risk type, we were training per contract type, we were training even per language, very specific AI models. And we used even like ensemble techniques to combine different algorithms to then increase its accuracies. So now we swap a little bit the approach. So we try to test in controlled and experimental designs and environments the proven value of GPTs and its capabilities. And once you have proven it for such a specific use case, for example, like reviewing contracts, once it's proven the scalability, I will just refer to the same words at the beginning from Steve, it's on steroids. So it's just on a different level. It's per country, so per language, contracts types, etc. You can scale this product way faster out and make it accessible to the whole organization. Next to development and enhancing product, I also want to discuss the adopting of generative AI, adopting third-party applications. So it's of course also something that we are doing. And let me give also here an example with Microsoft Copilot. So we did with 300 early access users, we did this early access trial. And 70% of the users were reporting 30 plus minutes additional time savings per week over a period of more than 6 months. And the average time savings was even about 55 minutes per users per week over these 6 months. So that means on the one hand that not for everyone, these products hold the exact same value. But on the other hand, equipping the whole organization, for example, Arcadis with tools like Microsoft Copilot is also type of investment. So we also once again need to do the math. And here we are talking about $30 per month per user. So we're talking about 30 million a year. So therefore, my advice enabling an organization is to weigh cost and value. It needs to be really determined carefully. But there's more beyond, of course, like cost, value, data, and people. And I think Tony already mentioned it as well. New disrupting technology also comes with risks. So the question always is like the how. And one key part and takeaway is the training and communication to mitigate risk within your organization. So to maximize the time savings that I was talking about before, the organization really has to learn and adopt how to use and instruct this new technology or tools to get really like the best out of it. But also we need to train our organization on its limitations. So it's really a cultural shift that we have to force. And that I'm also foreseeing as necessary, as this technology is really here to stay. I don't think it's going away from here. So therefore, Arcadis has organized itself into 4 work streams. We have third work stream, opportunities, people, and risk. And we got together these different types of, or let's say people of experts and expertise. And they are working towards an organizational-wide adoption of generative AI, LLMs, or then GPTs in specific, by not only building, also enhancing, and then ultimately as well, like adopting generative AI step by step. So let me just go back once again. Yes, we see huge opportunities. Yes, we can prove the value. And we want to use and navigate our boat to discover new islands, but also to explore already known islands further by enhancing already our products. And especially with the rise of Gen AI and GPTs in specific, but at the end of the day, we need the people and we need to use this technology. We need to customize the tool and we need professionals who can actually like build and enhance generative AI applications and ultimately then transforming the culture of the whole organization Arcadis. Giving back to Stacy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Simon. You've raised quite a number of issues there, everything from training and use and cost and value, and how do you weigh up all of these issues when you're trying to implement it, particularly across quite a large organization. You know, we face very similar issues, as I'm sure everyone on this panel does. The one thing I just might ask you, Simon, is when you're talking about integrating AI within such a large organization and into the operations, did you face quite significant challenges to get your users to adopt it, or was there quite an easy take up on it? I know you were obviously monitoring what they were using it for and how much time they were saving and so on and so forth, but what were the most significant challenges in terms of integrating it?
You mentioned at the beginning also the adoption rate. It went very fast. So 1 million users after 5 days, but still it's about communication and training. And it's moving so fast, and you only have a few experts within an organization. So for me, like one of the biggest challenges, like to focus. And ultimately also like, how do you adopt then this cultural shift with like a limited amount of resources? So, and on the other hand, Tony wants to refer to him, responsibility, principles of responsible AI, the legal concerns. How do you get it really like to everyone at the fingertips? So how do you communicate? How do you make marketing around that? Because at the end of the day, these GPTs are like prone for hallucinations. And how do you implement then these tools properly and raise the awareness? And from a development perspective, maybe then the last concern that I have, which like personally intrinsically motivating me day by day, is also how do you build now new proper evaluation systems into your toolings? So how do you make sure when does it start hallucinating and when does it stop, and how do you get this feedback back against loop to the end users?
I suppose how do those end users actually know that the answer that it's been given, if they should interrogate it further, or if that is actually, and I suppose that ties back into Tony's point about experience and wisdom, and at the minute there's no substitute for that. Super. Thank you so much, Simon. Dave Mackenzie, if we can come on to you now. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much. I know it must be quite late where you are now. Dave Mackenzie is from Aurecon. Dave is the managing principal of digital there. He drives the company's digital transformation initiatives, capitalizing on his 18 years of deep expertise in areas like digital strategy, AI, machine learning, visualization, software development, and agile project delivery. Dave, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and may I hand the floor to you. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Stacy. And I have the benefit of being the last one to speak in this format, and I'll try and pick up just a few of the comments everyone's made. But I thought tonight I'd just and I apologise if I look a little bit bleary-eyed. It is a bit late here in Australia, but I thought I'd just sort of talk through our generative AI program to date. I do think definitions are important. So if I say AI tonight, I am just talking generative AI. I'm thinking in the context of large language models. But at Aurecon, we've been quite fortunate in that we were very early explorers. I remember playing with GPT-2 and all the open source variants of that, and GPT-3 early on in the day. But it wasn't until ChatGPT launched that it really captured the imagination of everyone, sort of seemingly everywhere. And we sort of started to build real momentum along this technology. And we sort of made a strategic decision in our organization to lead in this space and to invest in it and build out some depth in our team and capability. And I think, Simon picked up, one of the things that's one of the challenges we have. You have a small expert team that's, they're here to support the business and develop out these use cases. Focus is really quite key, and also being getting good at saying no very politely to the business as well, I would say, as part of that. And along those, we've been also building out our foundations. So I think one of the things that lots of people forget as they're sort of embarking on this journey is that there's a lot of foundations you can establish. Your ML ops practice, the infrastructure you should stand it up, the security that you can wrap around that. To ensure that you're being safe and deploying the technology safely. I mean, Tony touched on permissions-based or role-based permissions-based approaches. They're really critical to doing this at scale. And that's been something that we've learned along that way. We have a couple scaled solutions across our organization. I thought I'd talk to one called Recall, which is very similar to what Tony spoke about with Fount, is a knowledge sort of solution. It gives, we've been structuring our knowledge for years at Aurecon as part of our transformation. And Recall really gives our people access to that, along with sort of secure access to ChatGPT and a few other bits and pieces. Increasingly, we're sort of adding specialized tools to Recall. But I thought just the interesting thing, a theme that's come up is, what's the impact and how these tools being used? And when we break down how Recall's being used, so our firm is about 7,000 people. To date, we've had 6,000 of our people use Recall across the organization. So adoption's been very, very easy. We've only ever really soft launched it in the business, and it's been very much a pull. In terms of the uptake, we see sort of 1,500 active users a month at this stage. But we've had about 80,000 questions asked of Recall. And this data set is actually quite valuable and has quite a lot of insight for us in itself. It's probably the best snapshot of what our business is thinking about at any given point in time. But when we really break those down, we see that 65% of the questions asked are really around business productivity. They're people that are sort of getting help in their day-to-day work. They're trying to find technical answers or solve technical problems. We see about 25% of the questions focus on skills development. Lots of those skills around software development, sort of asking, how can I do X? How can you help me code something? 4% around innovation, and only around 6% as being sort of non-work related. I recall when the Rugby World Cup was on, one of the most asked questions was who's going to win the World Cup, just anecdotally. So it's interesting just to track this over time and see how it progresses. And that sort of really talks to sort of like the internal efficiency that we're trying to drive with generative AI. Where we're sort of headed to now is really focusing on problem-specific solutions, and we do this by looking for problems that we have that are also our clients' problems. And I just thought I'd talk to one example, which is really around how can we dramatically decrease the time taken to respond to construction RFIs, something that's a pain point I'm sure many of the people on the call will have experienced over time. And I think also for me, it's about going beyond the chat interface. So much of Gen AI right now is encapsulated in this chat style interface, where really the power of this technology is far beyond that. And these kinds of solutions enable us to build out, an orchestrated workflow that we use the large sort of foundation models to orchestrate. We use domain-specific models to provide insight at the right points in time. And that really is about advanced automation of a process. With our construction RFI solution, we've been able to cut time dramatically, but also improve quality. We see the responses to questions being much more grounded in all the relevant project knowledge and industry standards that are applicable for a given query. And that's been a very nice improvement for us and problem to explore. And increasingly, we're thinking how we take that further. So one of the initiatives we have underway is how we fine-tune models around a specific capability line. So it's really going beyond just sort of, I guess, what is a retrieval-based approach, where we're grounding the response in knowledge that already exists or data that already exists. We want to fine-tune models around specific capabilities or problem spaces. And we find that this dramatically improves the responses of what we're able to get out of these models. And I think just finally, I think just some advice for people who are considering embarking on this kind of journeys. I think it's easy to get caught up in governance and safety and things that you need to do, but I'd encourage people just to start experimenting. Where you've got top-down strategic intent, you need bottom-up experimentation to sort of find the value and follow the value. And I think this is where those two things intersect, is really the exciting point. We've got AI experts and domain experts. And I think I really believe this is going to be the next big transformation for our industry. I often say to people, I think Gen AI right now is about, you can think of it as having 1,000 interns for 10 cents an hour. In the next two to 3 years, it might be having 1,000 experts for 10 cents an hour. And what does that mean for how we work and our future of work? So it's sort of the risk and the opportunity and the exciting part. I'll hand it back to you, Stacy.
Fantastic. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Thank you so much, Dave. I just wanted to you talked a lot there about starting with the generative AI, but then now really to harness the power of what the technology is really capable of, is moving into more sort of problem-specific solutions beyond that chat interface, and really using that sort of domain knowledge or domain-specific. Can you expand a little bit on that, and how do you require a lot of data to be very domain-specific or very localized? Does that embark on quite another large project? How does that work in practice, actually, if I may ask?
I think, yeah, look, I think you do need data, but I think people get caught up on the data a little bit. Sometimes less is actually better than just more. I think you need the right data. But the approach we sort of take is really understanding a process. And I think you see lots of sort of point solutions around automation or where you might apply Gen AI. We sort of like to take a step back and think, actually, how can we sort of have a model overlay or have a holistic look at a process, and how we can use it to orchestrate it, a series of steps or a series of tools. So we'll use a larger foundation model to coordinate the process, and they'll call out to specific models around a particular problem. This approach has worked for us, and it's enabled us to do things like recently we had an experiment to bridge the gap between natural language and generating geometry for design. So our ambition is to get Gen AI into design. And I think that was an important step to take, where we have natural language input, an orchestrated process that outputs code that's executed, and then that is creating a geometry outcome or a design outcome. These are the kinds of problems you can start to tackle when you sort of start to think beyond, the chat window, I guess.
Yeah, no, I don't know how many people have experimented with that. Where is it Dell or in GPT-4, where you can say an example of what you want. I would like a boy standing in a field with a factory in the background with 5 birds in the sky, and it's generating this image for you. And it's not very good half the time, but it is doing something. And I could see how, if you're extending that in a very sophisticated environment, taking that into the design, incorporating your domain specific knowledge and the regulations and all of the design algorithms and so forth, that you can see how very, maybe not quickly, but how it could be quite powerful in the coming future, and perhaps it's already there. But thank you so much, Dave. We've come to the end of the individual speaker presentations, and if we may now move into the sort of Q&A, a bit more of a panel discussion. We'll try and take some of the comments in the chat box as well. So I think just picking up where Dave left off, which was kind of going into, we've talked about a lot around the generative AI and ChatGPT examples and so forth. Where do you see, in terms of where the technology is or is going, what do your next steps look like? Looking ahead, what are your future plans for AI? Dave, you touched on it a little bit there, or specific areas or technologies that you plan to explore. Who might want to take this one first? Perhaps maybe Simon, do you have any thoughts on where you're going for the future roadmap of your organization?
Sure, I would like to pick this up. So I do think what I currently see is as well like a shift in the direction of more open source models, smaller models, more functionality. So we have like fine-tuning opportunities with assistant APIs. We even looking into then like more of these kind of task-specific completions, so working very closely with the business and the domain holders, so it really comes together. And what we see more looking outside the organization, and where also really see where it goes. Take a look at companies like Boston Dynamics or Figure One, so they're in the field of robotics, and you're even seeing there that they start enhancing their products by ingesting GPTs into it. And I think that's something which is very close already at our fingertips. So even like if you're looking in the Asian room, there we are seeing that this is going something to be in mass production. So I really foresee, like also in the shorter term, especially in robotics, that this field is really like expanding quite fast and might also have huge impact on the society and on our organizations and sector as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. Does anyone else want to suggest the future roadmap of where their technologies are going to?
For us, we very much had a software development capability and a data science capability. And what to me has happened with generative AI, it's very much been the democratization of AI in the sense of now pretty much everyone in our technology team is working on LLMs and open source LLMs and producing AI solutions. It's really changed the world, not just at a user level, but also the creativity level of what you can do with AI. And it's much more approachable now, much more accessible to many more people. So I think that itself is going to, create all sorts of possibilities going forward, across all companies across the world. So, certainly something we're bought into very much now. And it's really fired us up as a company to the types of solutions we can do for our clients. And I think it's that creativity is going to become, what can you do with the AI that's going to be interesting? And I've always been a great believer in experimentation. And I think that really is, at the moment, the only way forward. You need to experiment and find things that work. It's too early to know exactly how it's going to go. So keep pushing and see what doors open and just try things. That's the main advice I can give. Just keep on top of it. And at the moment, I did say something in my presentation about competitive advantage from Gen AI. I think if you don't do this, you'll have competitive disadvantage very soon because everyone else will be doing it.
100%. I definitely have. I definitely have heard the phrase AI may not be taking over. However, if you're not using it, you may not exist in the foreseeable future. So it's very much that sort of AI-enabled profession.
Yeah, there's one saying, sorry, just on that, people say, I'm not worried about AI taking over my job. I'm worried about people using AI taking over my job. So, yeah. Exactly.
And what are those use cases? How can we be? And we've had some really good examples today of the productivity enhancements and so forth. Can I ask? We've heard a lot of, well, from my perception, is we've heard a lot about working with those large language models, building them, and is that going to be the case for everyone? Say you have smaller organizations that perhaps don't have data scientists or AI experts or specialists. Is it always the case that in order to harness, your own knowledge, that you're going to have to build it, or are we seeing things that you can go and buy the platforms and use them safely? Where are we at with that?
May I go first? So actually, we are multidisciplinary engineering firm, having the multiple engineers, especially civil engineering and designers or architect. We don't have so many data scientists, but we start having this capability. But this type of talent is actually demanded by many other industries. So I would say the remuneration level, salary levels, those are, just be honest, it's quite higher than our industry, right? So, but I would say maybe we still 1% or 5% our entire employee we have a data scientist or new type of talents. Maybe the major engineering firm like the members here can kind of hire those talents, but I think the small or medium size enterprise is quite difficult to secure those talent in reality. Even in our organizations, it's quite difficult to have one department have one single data or several data scientists for their project. So what we are even doing in the organization, we are actually sharing these capability, data scientists, for multiple sectors. The good thing is actually the digital technology or AI can be breached multiple sectors. So you don't have to secure, one department shouldn't secure one data scientist for one project or one business tree, one business domain. That's my position currently.
I also want to do one addition, more like from the positive aspect of smaller organization, they can go way faster. So making an organizational change, communicating risk, but also like providing training more specifically, that's also an advantage. And I mean, that's also what we're sometimes seeing. If you hire the right people, then you can go very fast with small organizations. I mean, we see these startups popping up and they really have an impact on the field of AI. And it's not always like these huge organizations. And even if you have maybe like as a total amount, more data scientists and more engineers and more software developers, it does not need to be like that you have like higher impact like over the whole organization. So I really encourage like small companies, medium size or larger ones, to really see how you can make a difference within your organization.
I'd just add to that, Simon. I was just going to say, I think some of the smaller businesses out there actually have an advantage. It's moving really quickly. There's best-in-class tools that are available at a very affordable price point for people to explore and use. And I was just thinking, one of the roles we hired, as part of our program is we call them a prompt engineer, and their role is to just write prompts for people, but also work with the business and teach people how best to prompt these models. And I think what's the famous joke is, how do you get AI to do something? Is just ask it nicely. But I think it's actually true, and it's something that's very accessible to everyone right now. This idea that we can upskill ourselves, we can play with very powerful large foundation models and solve real world problems today before you need to worry about RAG or fine-tuning things or going down a development pathway. There's lots available. Even new tools, like there's a startup called I was looking at just recently called wordware.ai. And this is a fantastic platform that lets people program in natural language, program with prompts, and solve real-world problems today. And I actually think smaller organizations that lean into best-in-class tools that are available can actually move the needle very quickly. Simon said earlier, I think you spend a month to build out a solution. Like there is a practical thing here that you can prototype and learn extremely quickly.
Yeah, maybe just to build on that from me, I think something else to remember, a slightly different perspective here, is there doesn't always have to be you as an organization. You can benefit from those around you that are doing great things with data and information and technologies. The question that maybe should always be asked first is what do those around me already have? So rather than I build something myself from scratch to try and solve a problem that I have, it might already be solvable by other things that others are doing around you. So think about the benefit case of engaging in a different way with your supply chain, with your partners, with your clients, to understand what it is that they might be suffering from and wanting to solve, or that they're already solving. They're already doing something that aligns with what you're trying to do. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is don't try and run before you can walk. Understand what you're trying to solve. Check in on those around you. It might be solvable without you having to do too much yourself. And that is a real sort of progression towards a sort of a platform solution and platform way of thinking, an ecosystem way of thinking around project delivery that is much more leaning on those around you rather than pushing them away. And that might be a good place to start before sort of going into what can I or can't I build, and what should I be buying as well.
Thank you, Steve. Does anyone else want to? This has been a really fantastic discussion on the possibilities and where it's going and building on some of these use cases. Just looping back, because we obviously now have the EU AI Act, which is nearly in force, and we have a lot of safeguards being built up to make sure that these technologies are being used safely and securely and so forth. Just coming back to something that popped its head up earlier in your presentations, and we've heard about it obviously for the past 12 months plus, is about the hallucinations and the bias, and how do you know that that the output that you're getting from the models and from the technology, how do you know it's true? I mean, Tony, your example with Found AI, I mean, it gives you the sources so that you can link back to it and sort of drill into it. But even if it's not sort of a generative AI, or moving into some of the other solutions, how do we know? How can we avoid this? Is the technology developing enough that we're going to be able to move out of this fear of hallucinations or wrong answers? I don't know, Tony, if you wanted to start perhaps on using the Found AI offering as a example.
You are right. I mean, hallucinating is something that so many people now know and talk about with AI, and people have experienced it. For us, it's just through constant testing and just improving our models, training our models, and testing them against that, and when hallucinating occurs, to detect that. And Dave mentioned a thing called RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. That's a framework that's we're using to help address that. But bias is another one, that we often hear about. And there's all different forms of bias. There's cultural bias, gender bias. We're looking to do a lot of domain-specific work. So I do. Our message with Found AI is you're responsible for the data going into it. And so if you're training it on, I gave the example from the water industry, if you're training it on data relating to the water sector, don't ask it questions outside of that sector, because you probably won't get a good answer. But also, if you're only training it on some of your data, for example, data relating to your successful projects, you're probably not going to be learning across all of your projects, because you've just, in a sense, built that bias in yourself. And then the other one you just mentioned there was around sources. That to me is really, really key. If you can actually see, I said the wisdom is with a person, but I also said that someone has to take full responsibility for anything that they deliver, that they've created through AI, through whatever source. You've got to take full ownership of that. And so to me, then it doesn't matter if you used AI or not. If you're actually saying, yes, I 100% own this, well, then you've got to check any facts within it. Don't just take it for granted. And that's why having those sources there is really key, so that you can actually go back to the original and check that the information is valid.
Thank you, Tony. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to add to that. I'll just say I think the issue of bias is far greater than the issue of hallucinations. Because there are times where you may want a model to hallucinate if you want to have a more creative output or a slightly different response. So I think it's just understanding and being able to benchmark the solution's performance along those lines. But bias I find a little bit tricky. And we had a great example where we ingested all our CVs, and it's great idea. How can you select a team for a given problem based on our catalog of CVs? And one of the things we started to observe is that it would continually offer up the same group of white men, sort of middle-aged white men professionals for any given topic or any given capability area. And I think there's an inherent bias there that we sort of detected, and we need to manage and find that. But I think that the bias can actually be tricky to identify sometimes. I think people should place greater emphasis there rather than around hallucinations, which I think can generally be managed a bit more easily.
Thank you, Dave.
I also would like to make one addition. I think it also really depends on the task that you're actually executing. So CVs are, of course, way more sensitive, but I'm also like a hands-on practitioner. So let me just talk about coding. So they're also testing bias. It's very easy. So I can use my GitHub Copilot. I can just take the code snippet that was generated. I can compile it instantaneously. And then it's the same thing I did before as a human. I was writing code, I was compiling it, and then, okay, I got an error message, so how to fix it. So I think we also need to really aware of, even when I talked about like multimodularity of these kinds of models of GPTs, it still depends on the use case. And I think that's also very nicely outlined in the European AI Act. What are high-risk AI tools? What are non-acceptable risk AI tools? But also what are acceptable ones? And for example, just speaking for myself and also like in the field of coding, I think that's really like where you see, oh, it has a capability of being an assistant. I'm going faster. That's the reason why I'm using it. But on the other hand, it's very, very much unsensitive of what I'm doing because I get direct feedback from the system when compiling the code. So I think just keep in mind always, everyone who's trying it out, think about the European AI Act, think about acceptable and non-acceptable AI tools that you're building. Start small, start with a use case. And of course, also something which is less sensitive. Yeah, just to be safe.
Super. Thank you, Simon. I'm very conscious of, we've had some really wonderful questions in the chat, and I'm grateful to the panel for responding in the chat as well. That's been really, really helpful. I'd like to just take one more question if I can. There's been, I'm going to try and piece it together from different questions in the chat, but we've seen a lot of in the chat about how are people, what are some low-hanging fruit that in the construction industry people can start to use AI for bid analysis? I mean, Simon, you gave us the contract analysis example earlier on, and how can we use this technology to more specifically in the construction industry examples? Does anyone else have any that they can give? And I've seen also some comments about decision making. I think this topic is such a wide area. We can go into so many use cases from the procurement and the design and the construction and the contract analysis, and then moving into, I mean, I probably could talk, no one wants to listen to it, but for an hour about how we can use AI in disputes and decision-making and so forth. So it's quite a wide field, but I wonder if there's any sort of low-hanging fruit examples that people can provide for our audience. Or Simon, if you want to elaborate, is anyone using within your organizations for evaluations of bids or tenders, and using that data for insights into minimizing risks and so forth?
Going back to your first question, also in terms of like low-hanging fruits, I still see like our employees, our people, our low-hanging fruits. So at the end of the day, I also experience like the conversations that I had like a year ago were way less mature than I currently have. And I think there really every organization can have direct impact quite fast. In terms of these kind of, developing tools, like also for bids, etc. I just made the experience, and it's a very fruitful and nice experience working in this agile way, very closely with stakeholders. So they are bringing the domain knowledge, and we are bringing the expertise of developing tools, then combining both worlds together and evaluating these systems. But there, the low-hanging fruit for me is let the business decide on a problem. You as development teams coming up with a solution, but then you need to work together on really defining, like break it down into smaller steps. So don't only look at the big vision that we all have, like in terms of bids, like generating bids, evaluating the whole bid. Just look at one specific task completion. So that's my recommendation, based on my experience. Break things down into smaller steps and then make it more secure.
Yeah, I agree with Simon. If you are very close to the decision making of the client side or project side, I think you should be really careful, right? I mean, and still many people are wondering whether, like Tony mentioned, font AI is you're out of this font. The answer will be something not you're expecting. So our case, the low-hanging fruits is more like a reiterate or standardized work, which is like a proposal preparation. Our stuff of once the tenders comes out, we always go through the experience and some work have done in the previously, and that's actually labor intense work. We have to go through the logs and the chart, blah blah blah. That can be really can be automated, and the AI can give the optimal answers. Then you're confident within this your font. They extend to the client side.
Fantastic, thank you, Kunihiro. Right, So we're coming up to our time. We've had such a fantastic discussion around all of the opportunities and the use cases. We've touched on some of the challenges and the risks that this poses for us. I wonder if we could actually go to our last poll here to see, having had such a deep and really helpful discussion over the past 90 minutes. What does everyone think? Is this going to be more of an opportunity? Yeah, there we go. Do you view the integration of AI as more of an opportunity or a risk for our industry? An opportunity, having the potential to enhance efficiencies, innovation, problem solving, or as the industry, or do you still see it as a risk, still raising too many issues around security or privacy? We did touch on job displacement and ethical considerations and other challenges. After 90 minutes, have we changed opinions, or where does the industry sit? I think we could probably go to the answer now. It's fairly opportunity or risk. Where do we see opportunity? Well, wonderful. 83% opportunity, 17% it's still a risk. And of course, we've seen many examples there and what the industry is trying to do to help with regulation. Again, a whole other topic for a webinar in due course. But I think we shall wrap it up there. Can I firstly say thank you so much to our panelists. Steve, we very much look forward to your report coming out in April, and we'll recap once that's out. But thank you so much all to our panelists. We've heard from many use cases today around how different organizations are using AI safely and securely across the industry, how it's surfacing insights and enhancing productivity, but still it's not yet replacing the wisdom, thank you, Tony, and the experience that we need from our people. So thank you very much to our panelists. And Martina, may I pass over to you?
Thank you, Stacy. And big thank you to all the speakers, and also to the FIDIC Secretariat for organizing and facilitating today's webinar. And of course, to all people who joined in and asked actively questions. I think it was very interesting questions, very interesting examples given. So I think I take a lot away today. Particularly, this wisdom is a human privilege. I like that one. It's, so I think, we all hear that the humans are still needed. Let's hope we'll be needed in the future as well. I would like to draw your attention on the future FIDIC conferences and webinars. And so we have the webinar series. The next one is on the 9th of April. So please sign up. You know that this is on the FIDIC website. Then we have the Contract Users Conference for Asia Pacific region. It's an online event. So anywhere from the world you can log on. And also we have, of course, we have the State of the World webinar on the 13th of June. But of course, also in September, there is the Global Infrastructure Conference in Geneva, where hopefully we'll see a lot of people from the industry. But in between, we have also, because I'm based in Africa and based in Zambia, I would like to draw the attention also on the African Infrastructure Conference, which will be held in end of May in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Please get engaged with FIDIC. We have the YouTube channel. You got earlier in the chat box the link to it, so you can see there all the other webinars, the previous webinars, and this one as well in a few hours. Facebook, LinkedIn, X, former Twitter, we are present there. If you have still questions, please reach out or ask ChatGPT. Thank you very much. I wish you all a pleasant day. And thank you again for all the speakers. Wish you a good day. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.